post-match chat with chaps for that Millwall podcast where it finished at the Den. Millwall 0, Bristol City 1. And what a difference a week makes, unfortunately. Before we start dissecting yesterday's game, just to say this show is proud to be sponsored by Arco Recruitment, who specialise in sales jobs for the builders, merchants and plumbers merchants sectors. Right, let's get into it then. So before we talk about the actual game of football, I just want to obviously start off by saying yesterday was a very emotional occasion with us celebrating the life of the late, great John Berylson. I thought the pre-match memorial was fantastic. And I think to see his family on the pitch, I think the 5-minute tribute video was outstanding. I think there was many a grown man shedding a tear and getting a bit emotional. I think it was a really a good moment to celebrate a man and a family who have done so much for the football club we all love. So I thought that was really, really good. And also fair play to the Bristol City fans who all joined into that. So if you are listening, Bristol City fans, thank you very much for participating in that. It's a real shame that the performance didn't live up to that because it was a really nice moment and something that I'm sure will live with us for a very long time. I was talking to a few people after the game. Roy, if you're listening, one of my friends' dads, in terms about how we actually go about paying a real tribute to John. Is it to rename a stand in the stadium? Is it to rename the training ground? I think whatever the club decide to do, I don't think anything we do would be too big, to be honest. I think the man has literally revolutionized our club over the last 15 years. So let's see what happens next. But a really fitting tribute to a wonderful man yesterday. Not as far as the performance goes, though. So let's start with the 11 that Gary Rowett selected for the game. And he went with an unchanged side in terms of against the side that started the Middlesbrough game. And I don't think anyone could argue with that. I think personally he messed up in the week by playing the players he did. The same group have basically played 3 times in a week, and I don't know whether that showed yesterday. But he went with the same side. So Sarkic in goal, a back 3, left to right of Murray Wallace, Jake Cooper, Sean Hutchinson. The wing backs, Danny McNamara, Joe Bryan, Casper Denor, and Billy Mitchell in the centre of the park. And then 3 up top was Watmore on the left, Fleming on the right, and Kevin Nisbet in the middle. In terms of Bristol City, so they also played 3 games in a week. They obviously drew their first game against Preston, 1-1. Preston with a late goal. They didn't beat Oxford in the week, 5-1. They actually played on Wednesday, so they've actually had less rest than our players have. A couple of changes from the teams that played the last 2 games, but not wholesale changes. They didn't make wholesale changes in the week in the cup either. And it's also, I think it's important to note that they were probably without 3 of their best players yesterday. So obviously Alex Scott has just left. He's been injured, but he's £25 million player supposedly. But he was definitely one of their best players, and no Andy Vineman and Tommy Conway, who are very good players. So it was a Bristol City side that weren't full strength. I would imagine they will invest some of that 25 million they got for Alex Scott. And if I'm being really honest, and if you're listening, Bristol City fans, this is not a slight on you, but I don't think they're a very good side. I think they're just very well organised and very well coached. I have to say, I've always been a fan of Nigel Pearson as a coach. And I think what you saw yesterday was a side who are very well organised and structured. And I think Pearson won the tactical battle yesterday. So let's get into it anyway. In terms of chances, I mean, the game was really boring. There's no doubt about it. And I actually went on a bit of my sort of I did like a local stag do with some family and friends last night, and just puts you in a bad mood, didn't it? When you watch that dross, I had the ump all night. And one of my friends who came to the stag thing also bought a ticket for yesterday's game, so he was a day tripper. I'm not going to say who he supports, but it's not Millwall. And he watched the game, and he said he can't believe how boring it was from both sides, and it was. I think the first half, in terms of chances, I think for us we had one half a chance where some play down the right hand side, the ball cut back into Zian Fleming. He actually is a clever dummy, probably the best thing he did all game. Leaves it to Watmore. Watmore takes the strike, but Zach Viner, who was very impressive. I'll talk a bit about why he was impressive in just a second. But he was very impressive and blocked Watmore's shot. And then their chance that they had in the first half was from the result of a corner, a bit of a scramble in the box. Sarkic actually comes and doesn't get anywhere near it. And then a combination of Murray Wallace, Jake Cooper and Sarkic actually stops two rebounded efforts that were going towards goal. That was it in terms of chances in the first half. It was very, it started off with a bit of intensity, but then it kind of died down. I felt like we didn't play with any urgency whatsoever, to be really honest. I just felt there was no urgency. And at half time, you're probably thinking, this is Gary Rowett, he's not going to make changes. But some managers would. Some managers absolutely would have made changes at half time. I personally would have waited till about 55, 60 to give it another sort of 10, 15 minutes. But after that point, and you can see that nothing's changing, for me, you have to make changes. And the fact he didn't make the Amaku and SA changes until around 80 minutes, I think it was the wrong decision. I think he got it right last week against Middlesbrough, and he deserves credit for that. But he got it wrong yesterday for me, and the subs came way too late. It was just obvious that it wasn't working. There was no urgency. We didn't create anything. In terms of the second half, I'm not going through the normal, minute by minute in terms of chances and things, because it really wasn't that kind of game. We wouldn't have much to talk about. But in terms of chances in the second half, I think they had definitely the better chances. There's no arguing there. They had a header from Bell. He may have been offside, but that was close. They had two long-range efforts from Matty James, who obviously goes on and scores the winner, but Matty James and then Anis Mehmeti, who come on. A couple of sort of long-range efforts that went just wide. Our best chance of the whole game came from a free kick that was won by some good link-up play between Joe Bryan and Romain Esse. Who actually showed a bit of impetus and wanted to drive with the ball forward. Esse gets brought down. I don't know why Joe Bryan didn't take the free kick, but Saville steps up. It's not a bad free kick. Keeper parries it. He parries it straight to Danny McNamara. And I think it's Harry Cornick who actually is a superb block, because it's going in if he doesn't get there. You could say maybe Danny Mac needs to do better in that situation, but it is a very good block from Harry Cornick. And then they get the winner, the sucker punch, in the 94th minute, I think it was, with their only shot on target. It's a long throw from Harry Cornick. It causes a bit of sort of pandemonium in the box. I think Cooper ends up on his arse. And actually, if you watch it back, and I've watched it back a couple of times now, Matty James is SA's man, and he sort of points to Billy Mitchell to say, you pick him up. But Billy Mitchell's not looking, so he ends up completely free in the box. And it's a very good finish, I have to say. The ball sort of bobbles back out, sort of, I think it was in line of sort of the penalty spot. And it's kind of like a bit of an acrobatic half volley right into the bottom corner. Sarkic, absolutely no chance whatsoever. And they win the game 1-0. And if I'm honest, that was a 0-0 game. And I think Rowett said that in his post-match. But if any team deserved to win it, it certainly wasn't us. Bristol City were a much better side. And again, not slighting them, but I don't think they're very good at all. I really don't. I think they're very average, but they've got some things that we don't have. And yesterday, legs was one of them. They just had more impetus about them. They just wanted to actually, if anyone was trying to win the game, it was them. That's how it came across. I think they'll see it as the perfect away performance. They come and limited us. We had two shots on target. I think one of them was the free kick. And we created nothing. They used their subs very well. At one point, Pearson makes a treble substitution, and ultimately the subs win in the game, because I think Cornick takes the throw in. I think the knock on is one of the subs. Obviously, Matt James was on the whole time. But what I'm saying is that they probably deserved it. In reality, we weren't good enough at all. Pearson in his post-match interview referenced that they were fitter that they were than us. Now, is that based on fact or is that just his opinion? If they're fitter, why are they fitter? What's all that about? The players need to be. I don't know. It wasn't the performance that the occasion deserved, if I'm being really honest. And I think I'm going to come on to talk about this sort of this 4 versus 5 and all that kind of thing in a moment, because I know there's a lot of talk on Twitter about what is, what's not working and stuff. I'm just going to give my opinion, just like everyone else is. But it just weren't good enough, and I don't care. Rowett and the players need to take responsibility for that, because I think that Rowett cocked up by playing the same team against Reading. He could have rested players. Reading played a very young side, and I bet you any money that they ran us ragged, and the players were probably about to expend more effort in a game they didn't really care about on Tuesday than they would have liked. That then puts him on the back foot for yesterday. He makes no changes because he wants to keep the same team that won at Borough, but then he doesn't make subs early enough when he needs to. Whereas they've done their homework, they were well drilled, organised, very well coached. They used their squad well, a very average squad at that, if I'm being honest. And I've said Bristol City fans listen to this already thinking he's out for us. I'm not. I think you'll be a mid-table side, but it just shows you what good tactics and a way of playing does for you. I was very impressed with your two centre halves, I have to say. And I got a few stats in terms of why their centre halves are better than ours with the ball at their feet. But I'll come on to that in a second. And I just want to talk a little bit about I guess performance ratings of everyone. Sarkic didn't really have anything to do, but at the end of the day, whether that was George Long in goal or Bilkowski in goal or Sarkic, the result would have ended up the same. Probably similar against Middlesbrough, so nothing really to judge on him. The back three. So I'll address this point now. Then we're talking about the back three. Now, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter call out Murray Wallace out of the back three. So first of all, I think Hutch is exempt from the criticism because I think he actually was one of our better players yesterday, and he was also very good against Middlesbrough. I think defensively he's solid and he looks back to his old self. So Hutch is kind of exempt from this. But Murray Wallace seems to be getting a bit of an unfair share, I think, of criticism. He's a very limited footballer. He always has been and he always will be. The reason that he is getting the pelters he's getting is because you're noticing his errors more. And guess why that is? Because he touched the ball more than anyone else in our team yesterday. But his actual pass completion rate was a lot better than most of the team. So factually, because I walked away from that game thinking, "Cool, Murray Wallace has had a bit of a shocker here." But I looked at the facts, and he touched the ball more than anyone else in our team, and his pass completion rate was a lot better than some of others, including Mr. Zian Fleming, whose pass completion rate was almost only 1 in 2. So yes, Murray Wallace wasn't great, but I just want to call out that he touches the ball more than anyone else. And whilst I'm on this topic, what was really interesting is that Bristol City's pass completion rate of Zach Viner and Rob Dickey, their two centre halves, was significantly higher than any of our defenders, both in this game and in the Borough game. So they've got defenders that are able to defend, but also are able to pick a pass and carry the ball out. Zach Viner is exactly what we're looking for. He's quick. Well, he's quicker than our defenders, put it that way. He's physical. He's able to pick a pass calmly. Our players just seem to panic when they've got the ball at their feet. And that's what we need. We actually don't need better defenders for defensive reasons. We need better defenders because if we're going to play a 5 at the back, and I'm going to come on to that point now, we have to have people that can have the ball at their feet. It's as simple as that. And as part of this, and I just want to get my view across here, right? I don't care whether we play a 4 or a 5. Everyone seems to have it in their head at the minute that if we go to a back 4 at home, all our problems will be solved. Well, they won't, because actually, if you look last season, the back end of last season, most home games we played with a back four towards the back end of last season, and our form was terrible. In actual fact, here's a couple of stats for you. We've lost our last 3 league games at home. We lost the last 3, and obviously, if you add the cup game into it as well, that's the last 4 games at home. We've only won 3 out of our last 11 championship games. 3 out of 11, home or away. That's terrible. And in our last 9 home games, we've won twice. So this thing of the Den's a really difficult place to come, maybe for us it is, because away teams seem to be coming and picking up points quite easily. We've won 2 out of our last 9 home games. And as I say, a lot of that was with a back four. So the problem is not the formation, in my opinion. The problem is the style that we are inflicting on the game, the lack of urgency, the lack of trying to take the game to teams. It's the mentality. It is not necessarily the formation. What I will say, though, and this is something I've picked up on, and I always like to back this up with stats. So I was trying to, after I got over my hangover, can I just say, I woke up this morning with a bit of a sore head. But I was trying to just understand why things are so different versus Middlesbrough and as it was yesterday. And I might be oversimplifying it, but this is the way I look at it. When we play away from home against a team like Middlesbrough, we have less of the ball. If we have less of the ball, that means our defenders who can't play with the ball with their feet also have less of the ball. And that shows up statistically. So yesterday, for example, this is one example, Murray Wallace had 49% more touches of the ball than he did against Middlesbrough. Now, that to me highlights the problem. If we are playing a team that are going to give us the ball, which at home is going to happen. At home, we are expected to take the game to the team. We're not playing on the counter like we did against Borough. That's okay. We didn't have the ball in that game. They had it. We played on the counter. That suits us away from home. At home, when we have the ball, we have to have players that are able to use the ball. And we don't have that. And I don't care if it's a 4 at the back or a 5 at the back, people getting hung up on that. It's not that. It is the fact we have players that have most of the ball that cannot use it. And it's simple as that. At home, we have more of the ball. And the players that have the ball are Murray Wallace, Jake Cooper and Sean Hutchinson. Factually, they had more touches than anyone else on the pitch for us yesterday, and they cannot use the ball. So therefore, you either do one or two things. You either go out and you sign other centre-backs that can do that, or you drop one of those players and you play someone that can use the ball. And whether that is a formation change that brings George Saville in a 3-man midfield, or you go, sod it, I'm going to play George Evans because that's one thing we know he can do. The whole point is this style of play at home does not work. And it will not work against teams like Bristol City that are happy to come to Millwall for a point. They ended up with all 3. Fair play to them. But this style of play will not work. And Rowett has to address this because if he doesn't, I'm telling you now, he will not last the season. And I know that's a very bold statement. And I'm a Rowett fan. I think you all kind of know that. But it is factual. He has to change this because if he doesn't, we're not going to be able to win games at home against teams that are happy to give us the ball. That's why we always struggle against teams in the lower mid-table to lower half of the championship because we don't know how to break them down. So I've gone on a bit of a rant there, but I've backed it up with stats. And as I say, it's just my opinion, but hopefully those data points are, helpful in basically saying how I've analysed that situation. So I'm all for 5 at the back away from home and having Murray Wallace and Jake Cooper and Sean Hutchinson as a free and soaking up pressure and going on the counter. But at home, you either have to have the players that can play in a back 5 that are happy to have the ball with their feet, or you change the way we play and you drop George Evans in there, or you change the formation, you have Saville in there because it's just not going to work. Okay, so that was kind of my main point I wanted to make today because as I said, I did quite a bit of sort of research into this and looking at some of the stats. And to me, it's bloody obvious. I don't see how they're not seeing this. You cannot expect players that are not comfortable with the ball to have 50% of the ball for your team and expect to impact games on that. Then you have players like Duncan Watmore that, according to the stats I read, touched the ball 9 times before he come off. What's the point? What's the point of him being on the pitch if you're only going to give him the ball 9 times? Anyway, player ratings. So I thought Sean Hutchinson had a decent game. I thought he was exempt from criticism. I thought Murray Wallace and Jake Cooper were equally as bad. What I will say is that Murray Wallace probably made more mistakes because he had more of the ball than anyone else on the pitch. But he also made a very vital interception in the second half where Billy Mitchell had given the ball away, and they were breaking in. He made a vital interception. He going on to Billy Mitchell, massive Billy Mitchell fan. I've said this before. He could be a £10 million central midfielder. He was poor yesterday. One of his worst games for a long while. I felt. I actually felt his midfield partner was our best player by an absolute country mile. Denor very rarely lost the ball. Was trying to make things happen. Was trying to give and go. That little bit of urgency was the only player I felt actually that really kind of wanted to. Oh no, Joe Bryan at times did. But Denor for me was our best player. Joe Bryan was fairly good. The thing with Joe Bryan is I think he might be too much of a footballer for our current style. That might sound really stupid, but he's very clearly got a lot of ability. But playing in the system that we do, I don't think we're getting the best out of him. But I thought he was okay yesterday. Danny Mack, I think in the second half, his confidence went. There's a couple of times where the ball trickled out under his feet, went out for a throw in. Some of his crossing was really poor yesterday. But again, why wait until the 93rd minute to then take him off and put Leonard on? There's a minute left. I don't get it. What was the point of doing that? Make the change. If you can see that Danny Mack is his confidence isn't there, he's not performing, the crowd might be getting on his back. Make the change. Bring on Ryan Leonard. I don't understand it. Make that change because at the moment, clearly, Danny Mack, he's as I say, his confidence went yesterday, and it wasn't his best performance. To tell you the truth, I thought his delivery is poor. And if we're going to play the way we are, where our only width comes from our two fullbacks, we have to have players that are able to put the ball in the box. And then the front three. So Nisbet worked hard, showed some really nice touches. There was one part in the first half where he sort of dragged it back, flicked it through someone's legs. He looks very, very, very good. The problem is he's not in the game because we're not using him. We're not getting him in the game. Watmore was okay, buzzed around, but again, wasn't really in the game. And then Fleming. So is he lazy or are we not using him right? I think it's probably a bit of both, to be honest. I think that Zian Fleming has never been... Last season, he would go missing in games. And I don't think we used him well last season. So what Rowett's now done is rather than putting him in the 10, they put him on the right, and I think he's even more effective than he was last season. So I don't know if he's necessarily, his head's turned, he can't be bothered to be here. I think he's probably similar to how he was last season. It's just he's less involved in the game because of where he's playing. So that I don't get. What I would say about Fleming is if you're supposedly this £12 million player, go and get the ball. Go and make things happen. I don't care that you've been played out wide and we're not using you effectively. Go and get the ball and go and make things happen. Because if you're a great player at this level, that's what you should be doing. So I can see it from both angles. Yes, I don't think we're using him right. But at the same time, a player of his quality, and we all know he's got it, should be going to get the ball. Because when he is on the ball and he's impacting games, he can be a Premier League player. And I think in the right system and the right team, you will see how good of a player he is, but we're not seeing that at the moment. And then the subs, I liked Esse and Imaku when they came on. They tried to make things happen. They tried to take the game to, just like they did against Middlesbrough. They tried to take the game to them, but they came on too late. And we end up with, walking away with nothing from that game. And it was a real sickener given the occasion of what yesterday was. And I just think, was it the occasion? Because the performance was just really flat. Was it, the players shouldn't need motivation for games like yesterday. I'm sorry, like Rowett shouldn't need a team talk. Do it for JB. That's all he needed to say. I don't know. It was very weird. And we now got some very, very tough games. There is no easy fixture in this league, but we typically don't do very well against Norwich. They scored 4 yesterday, so it's going to be really interesting. Unfortunately, I can't go because I'm at a stag do, not mine. Someone else's next weekend, so I can't go. Hopefully, I can watch it so I can do one of these. But I think we need to make a few signings and quite quickly. I think we need a ball playing centre half pretty quickly, and I think we need another forward option as well. And they have to be of a good standard that can come in and impact the first team straight away. So work to be done for sure. I think it's important that we don't get too high when we win and too low when we lose, because this is the Championship, and QPR looked basically relegated after one game, and then they come back and win away at Cardiff, who actually thought outplayed Leeds for most of their first game. So it's a funny league, and there'll be ups and downs throughout the season. So I try as always to keep as impartial and pragmatic as possible and take the emotion out of these things, because otherwise we can just sort of sit here and rant and things all day. So yeah, that's me done, I think. As I say, yeah, I think we just need to move on, to be honest. I think that was just one of those days. And I think if we'd have got the 0-0, you'd have walked away thinking 2 clean sheets, 4 points. All right, not the prettiest of performance, but there was plenty of them last season, and we finished, in 7th spot. But it wasn't meant to be. They got the sucker punch, and as Gary said, my mate Gary, if you're not going to win those games, you need to see them out. And we concentration lapsed right at the last minute. But there you go. Lovely to see some of you as well yesterday. Your comments and coming up and saying hello is always appreciated. So thank you very much. It means a lot. And the fact that you guys listen and, give me that feedback as well, I really appreciate it. So keep it coming. As I say, I won't see any of you at Norwich because I won't be there. But hopefully when I do see you down the Den next, we'd have got 3 points at Carrow Road, which has definitely been a long time coming. So look, wherever you are, wherever you're listening, enjoy the rest of your weekend, start of your week, wherever it is. Thank you ever so much, as always, for listening. And I hope you have a fantastic week. And yeah, thanks so very much. Bye for now.